What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the next installment of our 2020 NBA Draft Player Profile Series. Today, we're going to be talking about Deni Avdija, a 6'9", 210-pound forward from Israel. You're here with Dr. Fantasy and the Fantasy Caveman. Let's roll through. If you've seen these, you know how these work, so we'll kick it off and roll right into it. Avdija, we'll start with his strengths. Caveman, what do you have for his strengths?
All right. Yeah, starting off here, I think the first thing I noticed about him is more he has a very all-around game. He does he does a lot of things well, I think. With a lot we see a lot of these prospects they have some elements of their game where they're good or excel at, but then there's with uh glaring weaknesses. Don't think there's a ton that hate about Denny's game here. He has a very good feel for the game. He seems to really know what's going on and how he could best help his team. Uh you watch that. Ooh, look at that pass there. Which is the next point. Perfect segue into my next point. He's he's an excellent passer, especially for his size. Uh,
Behind the
he
back.
yeah, just on point. Uh, he does a very good job at creating not only for himself but for others. Uh, which is always nice. You say you have a point guard to set up your teammates. You like to be able to have another guy on the floor that could set up his teammates if he needs to. And Denny can easily set up his team. He's probably one of the best. I honestly think he's the best non point guard passer in this draft. So and that's always going to help you out next level when you're able to make the right pass and find the shooters on your team. And then finally before I kick it over to you here, another thing I like about him is that when you watch him shoot, he doesn't need a ton of space to get his shot off. He doesn't necessarily need to be wide open to hit shots, which is good in today's NBA because in today's NBA you don't really get a ton of open looks like you do at not not even at the, he wasn't even at the college level. He was overseas. Uh, so that's always a plus when you can create your own shot and you don't really need a ton to get it off.
Yep. Yeah, and I agree with a lot of what you said. I think a lot of his strengths are going to lie on the offensive side of the court here. So, very versatile. I mean, you mentioned it already. I mean, with that court vision, I mean, he can create his own shot. He can set up his teammates. His highlight reel is one of those that's really exciting to watch, just
I
because
love
he
one of
makes.
those uniforms.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
he
those
make. Yeah, they're
red and
bizarre.
white stripe. That look like they look. Those are some cool looking uniforms. Look like a peppermint.
Yeah, the color is very bizarre, very bright. They love bright colors in other countries. We
Yeah,
just like darkness in the USA, apparently. But yeah, I mean, the first thing you'll notice about him is just his ability to set up his teammates, his court vision. He's a great passer. Um, I mean, it's what you said. I mean, high IQ. He's a creative offensive playmaker. He can create his own shot. We'll talk a little bit about his jump shot. I will say something positive about his 3-point game is he's a pretty good step back 3-point shooter, which it seems like a lot of these international prospects are coming out now. Not that I'd call him the greatest 3-point shooter, but if there's one part of his 3-point game that's not bad, is he's got a pretty good step back move. Not that he always hits on it, but the move's there at least.
yep.
And then defensively, I wouldn't call him a great on-ball defender. We can talk about that in a minute, but he is a good rebounder. He crashes the boards. You saw throughout these highlights, he does block shots at a pretty decent rate. You can't really go by his stats because they're not usually accurate in these countries. I mean, he wasn't playing last season. He didn't play that many minutes um, overseas. So, and a lot of people read that as a negative thing. That's just the reality. I mean, even a guy like Luka wasn't playing significant minutes in every league that he played in. So, I mean, don't read too much into that. But he is a very good shot blocker. He shows a willingness to crash the boards. But I mean, I think overall his strengths just lie in him being high IQ, creating his own shot, being a great passer, and that's really his top strengths there that'll help him be that traditional point forward in today's NBA, which, I never like saying point forward because I think that sounds ridiculous, but if that's realistically what he is. So let's go over to his weaknesses. What do you have for this caveman?
A couple of things really stand out here, and these, I think, when we talk about the top end prospects, his stand out to me more than most of them. First thing is Utah. He's a very bad free throw shooter. Like, 50. That's like barely better than DeAndre Jordan level at the line. That's just awful. And it's highlighted by the fact he's at his best when the ball is in his hands and he's able to either get his own shot or make plays for his teammates. And when you like to have the ball in your hand, you're gonna get to the free throw line, and that's really gonna hinder him. I'm afraid that you're at the next level. You're gonna see him on the bench at the end of the games quite a bit because his free throw shooting is gonna be a liability. It'll be like a hack a Deni strategy if he doesn't improve that free throw shooting. So that's, which is concerning because you look at his form and it's not a bad form at all. Like his shooting form isn't bad. I think the free it's just gonna lots and lots of practice and just take free throw drills. I think the form is there. I don't think the form is really anything he needs to overhaul or really fix a ton. I just think it's gonna come down to consistency and just practicing and getting better at the free throw line. And another thing that alarms me is, like we said, we talked a lot about his offensive game and the strengths, but a lot of his weaknesses on the defensive end. So he's purely a wing defender. He doesn't have the strength or power to defend the bigs at the next level, but he also doesn't have top end agility or speed to really guard smaller guys. He's kind of stuck in the in between and just a wing defender. He doesn't have as much defensive versatility as because you guys think guys that are 6'8", like guys, they're usually those are guys that have the ability to defend a lot of positions, and he just doesn't have the strength or athleticism to be able to defend multiple positions, and that's something that I think's gonna hold him back at the next level here.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of his weaknesses do lie defensively. I mean, you mentioned not great speed. Doesn't have great length either. His wingspan is not very expansive for a guy his size. You would expect him to be a little longer. He's not very long for his size. So, if you're talking about what position is he going to defend, I have no idea because I don't think that he'd be able to keep up with the athleticism of a lot of 3s and 4s, but I don't think he'd be able to keep up with the speed of a 1 or 2. So, I think that's a huge hole in his game right now. And, I don't know if there's ever going to be a clear answer to that, and realistically that means his offensive game is going to have to be so strong that you don't care about his defense and you have other pieces around his offensive game to make up for his defensive liabilities. And I think that's a real concern because as of right now, I'll tell you, his offensive game is not good enough to where he can play no defense. It's definitely
It's
not at that
he doesn't
level.
at this point in this league, you need to basically have James Harden like ability to be able to survive with no defense.
Yeah.
And he has nowhere near James Harden offensive ability, so it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess this is a good opportunity to go on my Luka rant a little bit. I mean, as soon as people see international prospects now that, these point forwards, great size, great passing ability, everybody is just jumping right to Luka. But I think it's underrated how dominating of an offensive force Luka is. Luka is not a great defender, but you don't care because his offensive ability is one of the best in the entire league. And that's what people have to realize. I think there's going to be a lot of international busts over the next few years because I think everybody's going to be chasing Luka in the first round. And, to me in a normal draft, Deni's the kind of guy that you take 20 in the 20s or 30s to a really solid franchise and you develop him and hope that he can develop that offensive game. This is a developmental prospect to me. And we're talking about this guy potentially going number 2. I mean, that's bizarre to me. And as much as he's kind of dominated, because he's had a lot of success at a young age overseas. So, I mean, but Luka was a prodigy. I mean, and he was incredible overseas. And Deni, one of the big things that people criticize, and obviously I haven't watched a full game of Deni, but there's a lot of criticism from NBA scouts that say he fizzles out during games and he disappears offensively.
Ooh.
I mean, that's not high praise. I mean, if you want a superstar level player, I mean, best case scenario, I think he's just a facilitator, and I don't think based on his defensive ability, he can make it as just a facilitator. And I mean, when you start talking about his 3-point shooting, he shot 25% from 3 overall too. So he was not a good 3-point shooter either, and he played in a few different leagues, so it depends what stats you're looking at. But at no point was he a strong 3-point shooter. So I mean, when you couple together, he's just a facilitator with no defense. I don't see it. I mean, I don't see it, and I think people are pushing hard. And we'll talk a little bit about some NBA fits because there's a lot of rumors that I'm personally really shocked with. But and I'll also couple his defensive ability with. There's a lot of reports he doesn't give effort on the defensive end, and you know how much I hate that.
Yeah.
And so he has very little defensive ability already, and he's not putting in effort. I mean, and like I said, he's not strong enough offensively to do that. So there's a lot of questions for me, and I don't. If I had to pick one guy that I really think's gonna bust, I think it'd be Deni. But we'll talk about those NBA fits because I want to talk about him going to the Warriors a little bit in this episode because I think it's bizarre. But we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about NBA comparisons first. I mean, I don't even know where to go with this one. If you want to be honest, I was trying to find I saw Hedo Turkoglu. I'll start off quite a bit. Almost every single scouting site that I did research on, all of them said Hedo Turkoglu. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily see that one. One that I saw a random comment on in an NBA group on him was Nicholas Batum. And I know that seems like, at first I was like, no way. But then I thought about, I mean, Batum, first of all, was, I believe, pick 25, somewhere in that range. Like I said, that's where Deni should be going, and he's not because of this class. And I think it's the Luka effect, is what I'm going to call it here. But Batum was a guy similar size. I didn't really remember Batum being a point forward kind of player, but coming out and coming from overseas, he was known as that, and he did average 5 and 6 assists a few years in the NBA. So a little more than I remember, but another guy that never really put it together offensively or defensively. And I mean, he had some solid seasons, but he never really lived up to that potential. And I'll be kind of honest in saying I think Nicholas Batum is optimistic because Batum has been in the league for, I mean, almost 10 years, I believe. So, I mean, I honestly, and this is so harsh, I'd be surprised if Deni played in the NBA for 10 years. I really would be. So, I don't really have any great ones, honestly. I think the Turkoglu's interesting to me. I don't know if I necessarily see that one. Batum, I think is pretty solid. I saw a few Gordon Haywards. I don't really know if I like the Gordon Hayward comparison. I can see flashes of it, but I think Deni's a great example of, it's hard to find perfect fits. And I can see elements of Hidu's offensive game. I can see elements of overall Nicholas Batum's game. I can see some flashes from, but I think it's really challenging to come up with a really close comparison for Deni.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I had Gordon Hayward down, but I don't feel incredibly great about it. We already beat a dead horse talking about the on just the ridiculous Luka comparisons. I think we need to stop with that. Just stop. The guy I came across was Lamar Odom.
Okay.
I mean, you look at Lamar Odom. He was he was about a couple inches taller, but he's still similar. And Lamar Odom was never known as a defender.
Nope.
I would say. But Lamar Odom also was a very good passer for his size. And he wasn't. He also wasn't the. He was more of a 3-point shooter than Deni, I would say, which is probably what maybe makes it not the greatest comparison. But if you look at all the elements of his game outside of shooting, I think Lamar Odom would be a fair comparison. But like you said, there's not a really good one. I mean, I heard some Danny Granger comparisons. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. But I mean, Lamar Odom's probably the closest one for me. But I don't know. I think neither one of us are that particularly high on Deni. And like you said, because this is such a weak class, and in a normal draft class, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a strong draft class that he would be in a late first round and maybe. And I don't want to say he would be a possible early second because I think he has too much talent. His passing is so good that I think that it would keep him in the first round, but in a stronger draft class, he's realistically a late first round pick. But this draft class, that just shows you how weak this draft class actually is, that he's being considered a number 2, which is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about some of the potential fits for him. I just want to talk about the Warriors for a minute because there's a lot of reports that the Warriors are in love with Deni and they're going to be taking him second overall. I mean, it's just weird because I have really respected how the Warriors have built their dynasty. I mean, they drafted those guys and they built that team from the ground up. So this is a scouting department that's been very strong historically. And when I see a championship dynasty level organization like the Warriors coming out and having that much support for them, I start to question everything I know, honestly. Yeah. And that's why I'm so confused with Deni because, I mean, number one, I think he's a very strange fit there. I mean, I guess maybe you're planning on, since he's not the strongest 3-point shooter, you're really relying on him to facilitate open threes for Clay and Steph Curry. I mean, I guess that's his role as a scorers, but I just think Golden State has such a, no pun intended, a golden opportunity here to restart their franchise and really get a star level player. And I don't know why they would take a risk on a guy that I think could fizzle out. So I will say for Deni, though, that's an ideal landing spot. I mean, if he can go and learn under the Golden State wing of Steve Kerr and go to an organization that has a championship pedigree, I mean, that's beautiful for his career. And I would say, in my opinion, that's one of his only potential ways of not busting is if he goes to, I mean, that's a perfect situation. Not a lot of pressure. He doesn't need to be a primary scorer. He can work on that offensive game and just be a facilitator for the scorers they already have. So, if I'm Deni, that's a perfect situation. I think it's bizarre that Golden State's considering it. I don't know if you feel the same way about that, but I mean, when I look at other potential fits, it's once again I really struggle. I mean, it's kind of similar to Halliburton for me, even though they're completely different players. Just is there a team that's looking for more of a facilitator? And I think that's one of the issues that the Bulls have right now is that
Yeah,
they want Kobe White
that's
to
what I was
be.
gonna mention.
Yeah, I think they want Kobe White to be more of a facilitator, and he's just a more aggressive, scoring-minded guard. So, they have Otto Porter right now at their 3. I mean, that's nothing
Yeah.
special, but I mean, I think Deni could fit in pretty well. They have Levine as well, so they have some shooters and some scorers that you could surround Deni with, and he could be more of a facilitator and work on that offensive game. Once again, we talked about it in previous episodes. I mean, the Bulls are pretty terrible defensively, so that's not going to help them out at all, this pick. But, I mean, if I had to pick one, I guess it would be the Bulls. But I'm not excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, Bulls were my top team, but like I said, I'm not that excited about that fit either. But it's better than most of the other options. And I mean, I had down the Cleveland Cavaliers as well. I mean, they really lack wing depth or wing players. I think C.D. Osman is probably their best wing player or something at this, which I think coming in, Deni could be better than C.D. Osman. I mean, what is that really saying? But I do think they have Sexton and Garland there, who are both considered shoot first guards. So they don't have a ton of facilitators on that team either. So I think that's another situation you could see Deni becoming more of their facilitator for Nate and to hit Sexton and Garland and the other guys there with some open shots. But I mean, but then I think even like with the Cavaliers or with the Bulls for that matter, I don't think it's a good fit for the team, but it's not a good fit for him. And usually it's the other way around. Usually, okay, it's a good fit for the player, but for the team, not so much. I think it's the other way around with him. Like you said, he I just don't love any team, and that's and yeah, I just don't love it. I don't see why he's a top prospect. The way that I'm thinking it's purely because he's from overseas and people think he could be the next Luka. And that's honestly I totally believe that is literally the only reason why he's this high.
No.
It's because people think he could be, and for what it's worth, I don't think he'll be the next Luka. But I don't think anybody's going to be Luka for a very long time. But if I was forced to bet on somebody with gun to my head and forced to bet that somebody becomes the next Luka out of this draft class, it probably is Deni, because he has the elements, but I mean nowhere near Luka level, so he won't. But at the same time, if I was forced to, I would probably go with Deni. But yeah, I'm not feeling him either here.
Yeah. So, do you think that he would have a better opportunity to thrive if he was in Golden State? Even though I think that pick is crazy. I mean, do you think that's his best chance?
Probably. I mean, you look at it like what. Yeah, like I said, where does he really? Because you got Steph and Clay there, and you got Wiggins, and you got Draymond. So you're basically playing Wiggins at the 4.
Yeah, and Draymond's a 5, I guess. Yeah.
You playing Deni doesn't fit well at the 4 at all. So you're playing Wiggins at the 4.
That's some Rockets small ball bull crap right there.
I mean, hey, it's worked for Golden State. Small ball approach for them is, I mean, with Draymond Green being what 6'8" and he's their center. So personally, Golden State needs to go center, whether it's Wiseman or whether it's a Kunwu, who I think's better than Wiseman. But yeah, just don't. For him, yeah, there's literally no pressure on him. He can just facilitate, and that's his role, and that's all he has to do, which wouldn't be bad for him. But I just don't think it's not a need for Golden State to waste a pick on a guy that's just going to be a facilitator. So yeah, I'm not liking it either.
That's why I think it's crazy. As much as I don't know if Anthony Edwards fits perfectly, honestly, if they don't want Wiseman or Okongwu, I mean, at least Anthony Edwards has that upside, and his skill set as more of a slasher is different than the jump shot style and perimeter shooting style of Steph and Klay Thompson. So, I mean, I would kind of understand it, but I mean, I really don't understand the Deni to Golden State. And I mean, I think we have to consider a real possibility that Deni falls a little bit. I mean, we can't be the only ones, and it seems to be highly regarded by a lot of people that he could potentially be a bust. So, I mean, I'm interested to see if he doesn't go number 2, how far he falls, or if he falls at all. Maybe he does go to Chicago or Cleveland, but he's one of the most interesting names to me, especially such an unknown. So, I would say today this is our most negative episode. So yeah, I hope everybody.
I honestly, I hope I am wrong. I don't want anybody to be as bad as we are making it seem out like he will be. So I do hope I'm wrong, but we also gotta be realistic here, and we see what we see. So yeah,
and I mean, I love watching Luka. Yeah, I mean, I hope that I'm wrong too, but I love watching Luka's offensive game. And if there is another Luka, I mean, I wouldn't be upset. So, I mean, if he does become that, it would be really entertaining to watch.
Here we come.
Yeah. But I think that's all we have for Avdija here. We only have a few more episodes left. Make sure you tune in for the top effects, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yep.